Foundation Course Kabbalah, Part 2, Lesson 25. Rabbi Michael-ben-Pesach, Portnaar. Most important of all is to learn principles. From the principles, we can quickly learn the general and the particular. Principles to begin with, the most general principles of how the universe is built up. The principles of the universe apply to all of us. They apply to every deed that we do, to every thought that we have. Gradually we go to smaller, more lower principles. And then I can be able to explain, on the basis of those principles, the actual answer to the question that rises up in me. Depending on what the question is about, at what level, I can explain it for myself through a higher principle or a lower principle. Not explain, but I can see it clearly. Therefore, it's important to learn the principles. If you can't apply the principles, you can't comprehend an answer. When you see a certain forest, for instance an oak forest, then you can surely say that behind one oak stands another oak, maybe with another stature, height, thickness, width, or any other difference, but it will still be an oak. There are people who keep asking what's behind that oak, and the answer is oak. Such a person doesn't see the oak forest. It's very important that we learn the principles. First, general principles, so you can see for yourself that behind the trees there is a forest. You can apply this in your daily life. Not everybody can do this. Try to develop this in yourself. The same is with the prescriptions, mitzvot. Here as well, it's important to know the principles. What are those prescriptions? What's hidden behind the prescriptions? You shall not kill, you will not do this, but you will do that, etc. When we know this, we won't get lost. Then we can always use everything and we will progress faster. The most important principle of all the laws of the universe is the principle of taking out the food of a certain mixture and leave the waste behind. This can be a certain situation, a certain feeling, a certain attitude, a certain whatsoever of a certain mixture or a certain phenomenon. Take out the food and leave the waste behind. This is very crucial. So when you take out the food and everything that is no food at that time, in that situation, depending on your condition and development, you have to leave behind. Do you understand? Later on, when I have more strengths, I can look at the waste again, or what I once saw as waste. My eyes couldn't see it yet, therefore it was like waste to me. I hadn't seen it as food. It had no taste to me. When I have renewed strengths, I can look at it again, exposure it again, and reheat the food so another piece will become food. We have the same buildup in our world in any process. A factory makes a product which is the food, and there is waste as well. Just like crude oil is processed into nice products, and what they don't need is like waste. For example, hundreds of years ago, heating oil was the main product. They only saw the heating oil. That was the food, and the remainder was waste, or asphalt. This is the main principle. Why? We will see that everything corresponds to the fundamental laws of the universe. That is how it has been built up. First, there was a receiving of the light. Very fine, and what couldn't be received at the first receiving was like waste to the receiving. What is waste to a higher one is food for a lower one. This is an important point, a principle. Try to remember this. Wherever there is waste for a higher, there is food for a lower. A lower doesn't need to say no. To him, it's no waste. When you elevate yourself in accordance with your own soul, with your own strengths, you will see that your food also changes. You will eat less junk food in everything that you do. You can have junk food or a delicacy. What does that mean? In every situation, you have to sort out the food and you leave the waste behind. What is food? That depends on your development, your choices, your goal, etc. In this way, we are all different. We all live in different worlds. Our choices are different as well. There are 1,001 different levels of life. For the law, we are all the same people, and when everyone is corrected, we will all come to the same level. Still, there will be different souls of higher and lower levels. This is correct because we see this in daily life as well. One watches television and the other reads a book. There's also a difference in what you can see on television or what book you can read. Someone maybe likes to watch a soap. He feels life there, all emotions, he feels tears, and that is food to him, nothing else. In every situation, we need to take out the food and leave the waste behind. The waste in that particular situation, what is waste? That I can't find a taste there. I can't eat it. Then I have to leave it in every situation. What do you do in your spare time? Again, you have to look at it. Take out the food and leave the waste behind. Every minute, we are, as it were, torn by inner strengths. Because that is how the world was made, good and evil. So we will actively choose what is good for me, that is food. Food means something that is useful, usable. That is food. We see that food isn't made naturally. We need to make food ourselves. Why isn't food given from above? Food hasn't been given from above. For us, there's only the crude material, not the food. We have to make the food ourselves. We have to make choices, and that is the cooperation between the maker and us. Grains is that food. That is crude material, just like crude oil, and we have to work on it. What is the difference between grains and bread or biscuits? Why do we have to make it so difficult? Why can't we just, like a donkey, eat straw? A donkey doesn't ask for bread. Only man wants to eat bread, because it has been given to man to make food of this and leave the waste. The separation process. Separate chaff from the wheat. That is the main principle of everything. That has been given from the Torah. You always have to do this within yourself. There's no other way. You have to burn the chaff. How? By working on yourself, inner work. But don't burn all the chaff. It might be waste to you now, but later on it can be food, because chaff is also food for the donkey. I use wheat for the higher part of me, and chaff I can use for the lower part, for the time being. You can use everything. That is the most important principle. The entire correction is built on this. How do we get this strength to make the separation between the chaff and the wheat, between food and waste? The more we work on ourselves, the more corrections we do, the stronger light we get, which is able to instigate new corrections, day and night, day after day. Therefore, the Creator of the world, the quality of the only creating strength, has given us the Torah and the prescriptions. Torah has been given for the whole world. There is nothing else. Prescriptions, what are they? We have seen that the last lower hay is prescription. Prescription is the mechanism, the instruction, and while we're carrying out the prescription, we can make a certain separation between food and waste. Through a certain something in ourselves, we're able to purify, to bring the food up and leave the waste behind. The waste is what we can't eat or digest, and that's what we call evil. In the end, when we have done all the corrections we do day after day, until all souls in the bodies of man have been purified, the strength of the Mashiach will come. Only then. That is the plan of creation. When you know how this plan works, we can be aware of this every day and work on the execution of the plan. That are the prescriptions, mitzvot. Later on, we will also see in the Gematria what prescription or mitzvah is and how it's composed in Hebrew letters. It is unimaginable how much more principles and details can be derived from that language, that code, and that will give us more strength to take out more food. Why was it made that way? Why is it not given directly ready-made? That wasn't in the thoughts of the Creator. Everything is given in the crude form, and man has to make out the food. Why don't we have trees where sausages and bread grow? Man has to become human first. Look at a child. It grabs everything with his dirty hands and puts it in its mouth. They don't care. They don't know what it is. The same is with us. We have to grow up. Adam and Chava didn't need it yet. What food was there in the beginning, that was given to them. Crops, all sorts of things. They didn't need meat according to their development. Someone can be a vegetarian because he was taken from a certain place of the Adam, which is light, that doesn't need meat. Or it's possible that it is hereditary, or it can be someone's own choice to not hurt animals unnecessarily. This is principle as well. To hurt or to kill an animal is absolutely forbidden. Ari was so careful he didn't kill a mosquito, not even lice or fleas. Everything has meaning. Everything has its own existence. We don't understand, but it's even forbidden to kill a louse. We don't understand why. I could talk about it for hours. It's not for me. I learned this from the divine Adi, because where do lice normally come from? They are a product of sweat and bodily waste. When someone doesn't wash himself, that is when lice come. And the mites in a mattress, it's like they are not alive. They seem all very well important. They seem all very well important things. Of course, you have to clean, but their existence also means, as we say, we use the food and they are, as it were, the waste, but you need the waste as well. In your eyes, it's waste, but they are all necessary. So everything, animals, insects, no matter how ugly they are in your eyes, may not be touched. If you want the best out of this life, then don't touch them, not even a mosquito. You are not allowed to destroy a mosquito. When it's bothering you, say to the mosquito, go, leave. Let others do it if they want to, but you shouldn't. You will grow enormously, spiritual in all aspects, because you will become careful. If you won't harm a louse, then you also won't harm another human being. You will learn to be extremely careful with the creation, because it's not yours. Is the louse yours? Did you make it? No. It is a creation and belongs to the Creator, absolutely. This is the law of the universe. When you eat meat, you should only eat what you need. After the flood, we were allowed to eat meat, not because we got worse, but because we became mature. Before that, it was more primitive. Of course, on the one hand, more primitive. On the other hand, everything had in itself Adam. But it didn't come to development yet. Of course, all that misery didn't have to happen. Adam and Chava could have experienced development real quick, without all that misery. Everything depends on us, but they wanted to try everything. It wasn't meant bad. We will learn what the sin of Adam and Chava was, and what the sin of Cain was. Cain killed his brother, and how many are still in us of that sin, of killing something or someone else? If you would shake every one of us, our genealogy, then we would see what it was in the Middle Ages, a complete battlefield. Everybody killed each other. How many of these sins are there still? Not only in Europe, but everywhere. And so much unnecessary cruelty to animals that we have done. If we start to be very careful with animals and humans, then we will make enormous corrections of which we are unaware. Of all that misery, all that killing that took place since Cain, handle every creature, big or small, with the utmost care. Don't touch a mosquito. Question: what do you do when a mosquito bites you? Answer: you tell him thanks. Be careful towards the mosquito, because he is much less intelligent than you. You have to know that a mosquito only wants to do one thing: to suck your blood. Also in our world, man only wants to suck. Man only wants to receive. All that man can ever do to you in this world, in this life, is like a mosquito bite. A concentration camp is like a mosquito bite. They are not corrected, for instance, with a saw that they sawed people alive. That truly happened. Even that is a mosquito bite regarding the whole structure of existence, because the people who sawed other people later have had to be corrected as well. Even in the new generation, they have scruples. They won't understand how it comes, but they will have to do corrections because they are their parents. They or their parents did these things. We will see which faults will and which will not be passed on to the children. We will see what it is. Certain things will be passed on to the children, certain things will not. Everything is according to the plan of creation, but the time hasn't yet come to talk about it, because then it will be like a philosophy. Everything that you hear has to come to you through the main principles, and for now it's a question of a little faith and that you believe and trust in what I'm telling you. That is very good. I have to be very careful that I won't sin or bring you to sin with the things I'm telling you. As you learn more of these principles, you will be able to derive for yourself whether your action has been good or not. You have to be extremely careful with everything that lives, let alone killing an animal for fun, or collecting eggs for fun. Are you starving? Also flowers. Everything lives. Do you need to take flowers home? Let everything live. Be very careful. If you do that and you don't destroy anything that lives, then you do enormous corrections, even unknowingly. Don't touch an animal or any creature anymore. Do you know how much corrections directly since Cain? You will come directly to Cain in your consciousness because you won't touch anybody, while Cain did that. That's how deep you can come in this respect, even up to Adam. Related to this is not to throw away food that has been left over. Don't throw away food. Leftovers in the trash can whereby no one uses it. Even when you are a billionaire, that is also something that you shouldn't do. From above, in the spiritual, they always look at those little things where we fall short. Even when you are very rich, pay attention to what you intend to do with it. If you come to a party, take the least necessary, only what you can eat at that moment. When you are a guest somewhere, only take what is necessary, even less than you can eat. But if it has been served to you already and you allowed it, these are fundamental things. You can't say, I practice Kabbalah, but I won't pay attention to the food. This is childish, and then you play act. The spiritual can't be separated from the smallest detail we do in our world. Imagine, you're a guest somewhere at a party or wherever, and someone puts a lot of food on your plate. If you allowed it, the amount on your plate, then you have to eat it. Our upbringing tells us to leave a little on our plate because that way we show that we are civilized and well-mannered. But we should leave nothing on our plate when we have eaten because no one is going to eat after us, right? It becomes waste. For whom? For you, a human, but not for a cat or a pig or other animals. Be very careful with these things. Ari says that if a person wants to become rich, he has to be careful with these matters. Rich means to have abundance in everything that you have. Be careful in these things. If you're sloppy in those things, you will never have enough. Not enough money or other things. Everything is interwoven. Everything is up to us. Every detail is important. Also the material, everything you own, you have to be economical. And that means you don't throw things away if they are still usable. Why? For you, it's no food anymore. It's a waste in your eyes. For instance, someone can give away a yacht. It might be broken. He doesn't want to repair it. He prefers to buy a new one. The yacht is like waste to him. But to somebody else, it can be a life purpose. The spiritual world and everything is built up in this manner. The higher receives something that is like food, something usable, something that gives strength for life. He uses that, and the remainder, which is waste to him, he gives to another. The other also uses the food, and what he can't eat, what to him, according to his qualities, doesn't correspond with his qualities, is waste, and he gives it to another, a lower. It doesn't mean that the lower is, like in our world, that the other is richer or better. It is the structure of how the worlds were built up. Everything comes from Ein Sof. Only from Ein Sof comes food. Therefore, we don't have to get sick that someone that is higher gets higher or better food than a lower, because everything comes from Ein Sof. Of course, a lower step receives from a higher step. The higher is like a serving hash, but everything comes from Ein Sof. Keter, Chochma, Bina, Ze'ah, and Malchut. It doesn't matter in which world, it's the general. At first it comes to Keter, the first receiving. Keter receives what is meant for him, something that is for the Keter. The remainder that is waste to Keter, for the level of Keter, he gives to Chokmah. Chokmah receives what is meant for Chokmah, what is good for Chokmah, and he gives the remainder that is waste for Chokmah to Bina. Bina receives what is good for her in her eyes, and so on further downwards. Bina only receives what is for her, and the remainder that is waste to the Bina she passes on. In our eyes, it's difficult to see that a mother gives waste to her child, but actually it is so. Waste means you can't use it yourself at your level. For instance, a mother gives baby nutrition to her child. It's not for herself, but of course she will eat a little to show her child how good it tastes, but it's not for her, it is for the child. As we have seen the light come from Ein Sof downwards in the form of direct light, and the first receiving is Keter, then another receiving Chokmah, then Bina, Ze'ah, and Malchut. That is the first receiving of light, everything in the form of Keter. Keter has in itself Keter de Keter, Keter de Chochmah. Keter de Keter, Chochmah de Keter, Bina de Keter, Ze'ah de Keter, and Malchut de Keter. Everything has 5. After that, there was another receiving at the level of Chochmah, which was the second receiving. And again, Keter de Chochma, Chochma de Chochma, Bina de Chochma, Ze'ah de Chochma, and Malchut de Chochma. After that, there was a third receiving, exactly the same, but at the level of Bina, Keter de Bina, Chochma de Bina, Bina de Bina, Ze'ah de Bina, and Malchut de Bina. 3. We will learn all this. But then, at a certain moment, the creator of the world has shaken up the 5 Sefirot, mixed them with each other. Not directly in the beginning, but at a certain stage in the development of the 5 different Sefirot. At the first 3 receivings, the food had been taken out and the waste went to the one underneath. For instance, Chokmah took what was for Chokmah and the remainder went to Bina, and so on further downwards. And then the moment came at which all 5 Sefirot were all ready, of the capacity that they could be mixed to create the right ambience to place man in it. Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Ze'ah, Malchut. From Keter and Chochmah up to the half of the Bina, we say it was good, what we call good food. From the second half of the Bina, Ze'ah, and Malchut, it was evil, what we call evil or unrefined food, waste. But please note, what is waste for one can be food for another. Everything is created in these two, good and evil. What we call good and evil, to give, to receive. We always need 2 strengths, but what has been done at a certain moment? Everything was taken, as it were, whereby every element had everything that the other had, higher and lower. Each one has that in itself, shaken. It used to be Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Ze'ah, Malchut, but now everything got shaken. We call that breaking of Kilim, and also the fall of Adam, whereby for Adam also everything up to the first half of Bina, Bina de Bina, was food, as it were. It is written, from the Garden of Eden till here you may eat, because to eat means to receive, means life. Separation means dead, waste, something that is from the impure strengths. Where do all the flies and scavengers go to? To dead animals, and waste, and not living animals. Would a scavenger go to a lion? No, they fear everything that lives, except maybe small mice or so. But they prefer carcass, because that is food to them. In Torah, food means zivug, interaction. Interaction with the higher means food. Torah never speaks of food. So everything got shaken or mixed, and that is called the breaking of Kilim. It was a provision from above that all Sefirot got mingled with each other, so every piece had everything in itself. Therefore, we also have souls in ourselves. Every soul, every one of us has within itself all souls of the world, all the strengths within itself, as it were. Not all souls, but all the strengths in the world we have in ourselves. This means that I also have the strengths of the souls of Arabs, Papuas, Jews, or whoever. But the main or the overarching one, for example, is Jew. Someone else also has Jew in himself, but it's not the main course for him. To me, it is, but everybody has everything in themselves. That is because at a certain moment in the process of creation, everything got mingled with each other, as it were. The Big Bang, something like that. So at a certain moment, everything got shaken, and after that, out of that mixture, everything was rebuilt. We call that a new spiritual construction, and that is the world Atzilut. There, Keter, Chochmah, and Bina were built up. Not all the way till the end, because everything is connected to each other. You can't correct a part completely till the end, when the lower part, the other part is not corrected yet. Let's say your heart works perfectly, your kidneys work perfect, everything works well, but suddenly you get an infection in your finger and then your whole body hurts, feels pain. The same is here. You can't correct Keter till the end. Of course, we say, by way of speaking, you can correct Keter first, then the following, and then the following. But in principle, we eventually can only have corrected everything completely when everything is corrected. When the smallest part of creation, or of me, in myself, is corrected completely, then everything is corrected. When the smallest part of me, in Malchut, is corrected, then a small delta, let's say delta 1, or a small difference, will have its effect in Ze'ah. Everywhere it will have its effect because absolutely everything is connected to each other. Therefore, we also absolutely connected to each other. The whole of humanity is connected to each other. When there is misery, somewhere you should see it as your own misery. Absolutely true. That we don't see it because we shut our eyes. If a disaster occurs or whatever, then it is up to us to correct it. So mainly Keter, Chochmah, Binah, and the piece of Ze'ah and the half of Ze'ah were corrected. The second half of Ze'ah and the Malchut remain not completely corrected and are hanging thereunder. Below all these 5 Sifrot, these 5 worlds are man, and man has to do prescriptions every day. Every day. Every day is different. Every day I'm different. And I have made new developments. Exactly the same prescription that I do it in a different manner because I'm different. I received added value yesterday. Then I can experience the same prescription in a different manner. We do the prescription in a different manner when we learn, and that goes to Malchut and further upwards to Ein Sof. Of course, I receive food from Malchut. We receive food from the one that is directly above me, not from the father or mother. Where does Malchut receive from? From my wish and all that I do. It goes up a step to Ein Sof. Ein Sof gives back the light in accordance with my prayer, the good that I did while I was carrying out the mitzvah. I carried out the mitzvah, and through this it comes down and everybody receives a piece of light. Keter receives from my prayer. The mitzvah is carried out, his part, and he gives the waste to Chochmah. Chochmah receives from my carrying out of a prescription. It doesn't matter which one. A huge portion of strength and the light, and he gives the waste to Binah. Binah gives to Ze'ah, and here it's important that Ze'ah gets filled up. Because the others, higher ones, are as good as corrected. They don't really need the correction. Only the second part of Ze'ah, his lower part, in Malchut, needed. Because everything got broken first through the plan, we will learn that then a part got built up and a part didn't. Ze'ah only has 6/10 of strength after the recovery, and Malchut only has 1/10 of its strength. The rest has to be filled up through our cooperation. In order to receive this, we need to do prescriptions every day. We need to learn the Torah. Once Torah has been given to mankind, to each and every one of us, Jew or not. One Torah and the instructions. The non-Jew in flesh does the prescriptions of Noah with hand and feet. That is not insignificant. If you could see what all that means, it is not less important than what the Jews do. But actually, if someone does spiritual work, he must obey the whole Torah. Even the prescriptions that are valid at the temple. There is no temple, so how can we observe those prescriptions? By learning about the prescriptions. When we correct ourselves, we will gradually bring Malchut to 1 whole, or to 10/10ths, and not to 1/10. Ze'ah also has a lack. It has only 6/10. This can be corrected through us by carrying out the prescriptions, observing the prescriptions. What does it mean to observe prescriptions? It means that we do them for the sake of the one creating strength. That is, prescription when you act according to Torah, and not because you have a tendency to do so. For instance, I want to do good, and not cheating on someone else is good in my eyes. Therefore, I will do the prescription because I agree and I want to do good. No, don't do that. Or, to not destroy someone else is good in my eyes. No. Always say in your heart, before you act, now I'm going to do something, a mitzvah, because it is the will of the source of life, because it complies to the laws of the universe, because it is a prescription of the higher intellect, and therefore I will do this. That is a prescription. And if you do that because you have a certain tendency, I give to Jan or Peter because I like him or love him. No, you have to have the right intention. Mitzvah means that you only do it because it is the will of the higher intellect. That's why you do it. Don't deceive yourself, because then your act has no value and is only childish. Before you do something, always say to yourself, I do this for the sake of the only creating strength. Also, when you give to your man or your wife, you don't give to your man because you love him, but because You give him because it is a prescription of the Torah. Torah gives us light. By fulfilling that certain prescription, Torah gives us sufficient light as a reward, as it were. You make yourself receptive while fulfilling that prescription for a certain light which corrects you. What does it correct? Everything that got broken through the process of breaking of the worlds, meaning the strengths in the world and the fall of Adam. Of course, all other sins are added. So when you do so, let correct all the sins that we have done before you in the past, and the ones your parents have done, and the ones you did. That is the prescription. Therewith you come in conformity to the laws of the universe. Always say within yourself, I will not do it because of my tendencies, my hunches, or because my heart tells me so. Of course, you have to follow your heart, but besides that, you have to restrain yourself a little to truly say in your heart, you do it because it is a prescription. Because your heart can cheat on you. The heart often means your ego that gives you wonderful hunches to make you believe that it comes from your pure heart. But how could it come from a pure heart when we are the product of Cain? The product of all the misery that Cain and all the other souls have done. We are the product of that. Actually, we are the waste of all the souls that have been. Do you hear that? Because the first souls were the most pure souls. They have had their food and won't return. They don't need to do corrections. The souls that are corrected completely don't need to come again. They have a different existence. They all wait for the final correction, but they don't live in time anymore. They live in eternity. The following generation, and we are the last generation of all that has been. We are the waste of all those generations. Of course, we have seen there's no waste in the universe. The smallest louse is a great product of the creation. In the end, the last generations receive the most high or the most light because everything that has been done already, that has been corrected already until now, everything shines because nothing disappears in the spiritual. We all receive from the souls that have corrected themselves completely. We receive from them every honorable tzaddik, saint, who has been on earth, left their legacy here for us because nothing disappears in the spiritual. Like the rain, it can't go back. He did a lot of good deeds, the prescriptions, and has drawn the light here for all mankind, and we may use it as well. We are the waste of all previous generations. It doesn't matter. And therefore it is said, the apostate generation, waste. The souls of previous souls also long for our corrections of our waste, because they also can't come to their homes until the remainders have been corrected. Everything is interconnected. Keter, Chochma, Bina, Ze'ah, Malchut. Everything is interconnected. When the smaller or last corrected or primitive people in our eyes are corrected, that is very important for us. When the last one of our generation is corrected, that is very important for us because it is all or nothing. We need to continue. For instance, when you do your personal spiritual work on yourself, you also work on the whole. By correcting yourself, you also correct the whole. That is how you should see it. How can you tell whether your intention is right? When your heart tells you so, that means that you want it for yourself. But when you follow the prescriptions, that means that you do it for the sake of the general interest. In the first instance, you do it for yourself, and the other is for all mankind. Not only mankind, all 4 forms of nature according to Torah. That is great, and we will learn this. The whole world of the plants, the strengths, and their roots belong to the Malchut of the Yetzirah. To the Malchut of the spiritual world Yetzirah. Can you imagine? When you destroy a plant for nothing, plants also have their origin, their root in the spiritual strengths of Yetzirah. This is Malchut of Yetzirah. The world Yetzirah also has 10 Sfirot, and the lowest of the 10 Sfirot, the Malchut de Yetzirah, are the plants. All forms of plants, trees, crops, thorns, everything descends from the Malchut of the world Yetzirah. The roots from where these strengths come. All these plants, they live and long for something. Why is that? Where does that come from? Just from itself? No. They also are directed by Malchut. The last Sfirah of the world Yetzirah, all animals, all that lives and moves, including insects, descend from and have their roots in Yesod of Yetzirah. What does this tell us? All these worlds, up to and including Asiyah, are spiritual worlds, meaning they derive their strengths from the spiritual world. Therefore, we need to be extremely cautious with everything that lives. Question: how do you deal with eating meat? Answer: everybody's allowed to eat meat. Why is that? It is necessary. What is necessary? Man has been made in a certain way that he contains himself, or contains within himself, all four forms of nature. For instance, in a human, we have nails, that is like stones, minerals, like they are not alive, but they do grow. Hair is like plants, and at the same time, there are all sorts of transition phases. Man has everything within himself. The flesh we have in common with the animals. When you eat crops, then the crop that belongs to the plant kingdom passes into the animal nature. It's elevation of nature. It's the elevation of the plant when a plant ends up in a human body, or in a human, but only when a human needs it. Only when he really needs it. Therefore, when a human eats too much, more than he needs, eats excessive, because when a person is hungry, has appetite, it has a strength that we can't see, whereby crops pass on really good into the meat of the human, in his animal part. This is elevation of the plant. We have to eat only what is strictly necessary for us, only what we really need. That is the most important. We are permitted to eat meat, but only what we need, and then that piece of meat becomes elevated to the human nature. That all is permitted. But of course, it is up to a person to limit himself, and of course there are different degrees. Everybody has his own condition while he is here on earth. That also changes. It must be justified, not just say, I love nature. That is good as well and can come from your inner drive, but it has to be according to degree of your development. Then a person, for instance, could say, I don't eat meat. It is permitted, but I won't do it. Maybe only on Shabbat or holidays. Do you understand? So a person can impose limits on what is permitted. It is allowed, but it is up to me whether I make use of it or not. That is one's personal business. Always remember, it must be what is strictly necessary for you and that you like it. Eat what you like. That means that you are suited to eat it. The food that you digest will do you good. One thing you have to remember, everything is interconnected, interdependent. The smallest execution of a good deed gives a huge resonance in the universe. For instance, you wash your hands in the morning. Of course, you need to know why, but my people do it blindfold. That is also good, but you shouldn't do the prescriptions like someone who has learned to do them automatically, because then it has no taste. But it is good as well. Why? When you do it without any understanding, but you say, I do it because it is a prescription of the Creator, a prescription of the only creating strength, that has a huge effect as well. Left alone what we will learn. Let alone what we will learn. Right now, I'm working on a book of Ari. It contains only 150 pages, and I'm absolutely amazed at what I read. It goes beyond all my expectations. Sha'ar HaMitzvot, the gates of mitzvot, of prescriptions. In these 150 pages, only examples are given of prescriptions that are from the Torah. We will learn that step by step. You can't learn everything at once. I hope that when we have an overall drawing, we will go faster, but later, everything that we learn will come together. It will all fall into place like a puzzle. Even have respect for the same nature. Even have respect for the stone nature. Don't exaggerate anything. For example, some people might think, what do we need these mountains for? Let's destroy them, flatten them. That is much nicer. Why do we have mountains? A physicist would immediately refute it and say that all kinds of processes took place in nature and that it is how mountains arose through craters and volcanoes, etc. But he doesn't tell why craters and why volcanoes. Everything is necessary. Why those huge mountains? Everything has a reason. That also is essential for the universe. So don't destroy a mountain, chop off pieces of, or whatever. Because when you also chop off strengths, and we'll all have to do penance for that. Everything is interdependent. We have seen Keter, Hokmah, Bina, Ze'ai, Malchut. Any small deed man has done, here goes all the way to Ein Sof, via Malchut upwards, and the elaboration thereof comes in man. Keter receives the most, the waste goes down, etc. Eventually, the remainder, which is food for that person, comes to that person who has done the specific prescription. That was a small introduction concerning the prescriptions. They are small instructions for the for the correction, for the use of our world, and to give the way to the final correction. This is not done automatically from above. The final correction depends solely on us. It depends on the acts, deeds of every person, and not from God's and not from fate. Only from our deliberate longings and acts according to the prescriptions. These are eternal. We have talked about different views in Kabbalah of spiritual entities and processes. First, the Sefirot. The Sefirot also means worlds, Partsofim. Secondly, the names of the Creator, all kinds of names in the Torah. And in the third place, the shapes of the letters, what they look like, combinations and positions. How could we ever see how the world functions without having the proper tools? The letters are given to all mankind. They contain everything, the whole plan of creation, the whole correction, and it has been given to all mankind. The Jews to whom it has been given have to be the administrators of that operating system, just like we have Microsoft on Earth, which is the administrator of the operating system for computers. We are all happy users of Microsoft, and we don't think about Microsoft when we use the computer. We don't care as long as it functions properly. The Jews who receive the Torah need to learn Torah day and night and reveal all kinds of nuances. The next generations can reveal other things. Moses has had everything, or Rabbi Akiva or another. We can bring nuances upwards, which then will be revealed to us through the letters and combinations of the letters. We have the names of the Creator, Elohim, Avaya, in all sorts of forms, also through the position in the alphabet. All laws that have been given, we will see how it works. Alphabet Aleph is Hebrew, and Bet is Hebrew as well. Alpha is Aramaic for Aleph, and Beta is Aramaic for Bet. Aramaic is strongly related to Hebrew. The Phoenicians were Greek trading people near Syria. They came with the ships to the northwest coast, and they have adopted the alphabet of the Jews. There's a form of hieroglyphs that shows phenomena and objects in the form of hieroglyphs like the Japanese and Chinese people still use. It is a very old form. The form of letters has been given to people at a higher level. I'm not saying that Chinese people are less high or of a lower level. It's about the level of when and to whom it has been given. Jews have received the alphabet, and it was passed on to all the civilized peoples like the Greek, and almost all in the same order. Almost every alphabet starts with the A alpha. The Dutch and the other Western alphabets and also the Russian correspond with the alphabet, and that has been given to mankind. But other forms like the hieroglyphs are prehistoric, as it were. They are relics of the Stone Age, from a culture that originates from before the recognition of the only creating strength. I never talk about groups or nations, but for instance, look at the Chinese, how much polytheism, so many gods. There is no recognition. Of course, they have some recognition of the only creating strength, but it is mingled with a lot of prehistoric insights from before the recognition of the only creating strength. Adam was the first one to see the unity in all phenomena. He was the first one who could see that all can be found in one cause. Also in Africa, you can see hieroglyphs in ancient excavations. Africa is actually the motherland of all countries. Everything originates from Africa. The first man came in Africa. All other areas were later exploited. Everything originates from Africa. We owe a lot to Africa. I mean, there are all kinds of roots, but it's also lagging behind, and this has to do with age. It's not decrepit, but they need new man with insights like European man and not their own insights. The language that we have now, not the Hebrew that is spoken nowadays, they have adopted it, but the language since Adam, which was passed on to all generations, is this language, and therefore it is given to the whole world. This is also why Jews have been prosecuted generation after generation, because they felt consciously or unconsciously that they were the bearers of this connection between the absolute primordial principle and the generation they lived in. That's why it continues to exist. Also, as a primal people, within them they bear spurs of the connection with the only creating strength. It lives in them, in this people. They must convey it, and they have no other choice. Therefore, they receive the Torah not because they were so good. They were just as good as the others. They were almost forced to it because we can receive it. Nobody was willing to receive that because it's terrible to receive. It is the strength that is intangible, which is like fire. When a person is carrying out a prescription, whichever, even the most insignificant, and he doesn't catch fire while he isn't doing it, then he's not carrying out the prescription, but performing a child's play. When a person doesn't let the chaff burn, as it were, that piece of material from that person that was predestined to burn through the mitzvah, then it's not been done adequately. Therefore, no nation wanted to receive that because everybody likes to feel the material. They can feel the material, but something that lives forever, what is that? The Pharaoh didn't play with the Jews. He said, I don't know Avaya, because Avaya is merciful. What does merciful mean? When does a person start to feel the mercy? Really feel it. When you carry out the mitzvah, and through that, you let the chaff burn. Notches or scars of these prescriptions have to be made in your heart, and everything in yourself, in these places where it is necessary, everything according to that mitzvah. Prescription. You have to suffer for that it will do so to you. The Pharaoh said, I don't know that. And Ari explains why. He did know Elohim. Elohim means less than 10 sfirot, 7 sfirot, yes, that they wanted. Why? Elohim is the name of the Creator, which is manifested to man, or is lived through man, whereby man experiences din, severity, of the Creator, that he knew. The then world knew that the Pharaoh knew, but Moses told him he didn't know. Moses said that Avaya told him to go to the desert to serve him there. Moses didn't know where or which place the Creator would show him to serve him. Sinai, where they received the Torah, he didn't know. He made himself receptive for it. He also told the Pharaoh, we all must go and we have to take all our animals, our wives, and all our stocks. All stocks also means all forms of nature. Even metal is a form of nature. They took everything, carried everything to build up the tabernacle in the desert. All forms of nature had to be there because they all represented the might, the only might of the Creator. Of course, the Pharaoh found this ridiculous. Jewish tricks. You are going to leave this land and you have to work hard, and now you want to go to the desert to serve your God. I don't know your God. He indeed didn't know him. Why? They didn't know him in his quality of mercy, just like the Nazis in that period didn't know him. Of course, they were religious and went to the church, Lord Jesus, but the merciful God they didn't know. They were the most civilized nation of the world at that time, the Germans. Real culture came from the Germans. However, they didn't know the merciful God until after all that tragedy. It all had to happen. 2,000 years they went to the church and still they didn't know him. How can you speak to the Lord when you kill a mosquito? When you kill a mosquito, that means you don't know the mercy, the merciful Lord. The alphabet is absolutely built up according to the strengths. From Aleph begins light. All 22 letters are forms of kilim, but we have said everything that is higher is light for a lower. The first letter is Aleph, and the second letter is Bet. Then the lightest one, the higher one, is Aleph regarding the Bet. With respect to the Bet, which is Kli, Aleph is light. Ein Sof irradiates Aleph. Aleph takes the most fine and gives the remainder, the waste, to Bet. Bet gives to Gimel, and Gimel gives to Dalet, and so on until the last letter, the letter Tav. It is said that at the end of time, when all correction is accomplished, the letter Tav will be notched, as it were, on the forehead of the righteous. What does this mean? We will learn that. Forms of letters. In the following part, not the whole alphabet is covered, but a few examples are given to get an idea of what the letters mean, of what they contain. Aleph, the letter Aleph. There is a lot of information in this letter. Information is light as well. We can see Aleph is Yud, Vav, Yud. The diagonal line is Vav. Above and below the Vav are the two Yuds. Actually, from the first letter, we can derive all the laws of the universe in potential. The first Yud, above the Vav, are the altruistic kilim, such as in man, to give. The Vav represents the Parsa, and the second Yud, below the Vav, are the egoistic kilim. Together is Yud, Yud, Vav, which equals 10 plus 10 plus 6 equals 26. This is also the number of the name of the merciful God, Avaya. This is already interwoven in the letter Aleph. The letter Dalet. Dalet, for instance, can be seen as two vavs, like two lines, horizontal and vertical. Vav plus vav equals 6 plus 6 equals 12. The upper vav begins with a point which can be seen as a yud that is latently present. Everything is interwoven. The yud you find in all the letters of the alphabet, because yud is chokmah, wisdom. Everything is interwoven in the different letters. When we add the yud, 10, the total is 22. So Dalet contains all 22 letters of the alphabet. Everything is interwoven. Letter Hey. Letter Hey can be seen as a letter Vav, another Vav, and another Vav. 3 Vavs. So from Vav you can see the instrument of 3 lines. Right line, left line, and the center line. Letter Mem. This is a curved Vav. And the letter Kaf, Kaf equals 20, and Vav equals 6. Together, that is 26. Everywhere you find the Creator also indirectly in every kli. Mercy is everywhere. Even in every louse you find an expression of mercy. That is how you should see the world. Then you are the closest to the truth. Everything is up to you. Do it every day. Even the smallest louse, you can see it, the mercy. A letter Kuf. When you take a letter Hey and you extend it, it becomes the letter Kuf. The extension downwards tells us that Kuf is also a letter that shows impure strings. All 22 letters of the alphabet are, of course, sacred. They indicate light, but they also display impure strings. For instance, Kain, Kuf, Yud, and Nun. So, after the 22 letters, there are 5 more, and they are called the final letters, or in Hebrew, Safit. They appear at the end of a word. It involves the letters Chaf, Mem, Nun, Pei, and Tzadi. Nun, as in Kain, is a Nun Safit, a final letter. The alphabet is from 1 to 400, from Aleph to Tet, from Yud to Tzadi, and from Kuf to Tav. So from Aleph to Tet is 1 to 9. From Yud to Tzadi is 10 to 90. And from Kuf to Tav, it is 100 to 400. And with the 5 final letters, Chaf Sofit, 500, Mem Sofit, 600, Nun Sofit, 700, Pei Sofit, 800, and Tzadi Sofit, 900. We have again 9 letters. The 5 final letters correspond to their 5 normal letters, but are written somewhat different. They are strengths of Malchut. The final letters are strengths of Malchut. Just to give you an example of how Torah plays with these things, or gives allusions whereby we can receive a lot of information and light of what Torah is. There's also a word, Ketz. Kuf Tzadi, and it means end. At the time of the generation of the flood and of Sodom and Gomorrah, we call that Sodom and Gomorrah and not Gomorrah, the Creator said, I put an end to the human race. End means Ketz. Also, when the slavery in Egypt was terminated, there had been a Ketz. Jews went to Egypt to stay there for Tav years, 400 years. Why? To generate all the creating strengths of the alphabet in themselves, to generate all those strengths and wishes in themselves. 400 years, but they cried that they could not take anymore. We are so tired of everything, they yelled to the Creator. Ketz has gematria 190. He shortened their stay in Egypt with 190 years. He took of the 190 years, thus remains 210 years, number Reish Dalet Vav. In Torah is written Redu, descend. He told Jacob, Redu, descend to Egypt. That was command of the Creator. In this word, Redu, all the letters, Reish Dalet Vav, 246. So this was an allusion that they would only be there for 210 years. Reish Dalet Vav, 200 plus 4 plus 6. So this was an allusion that they would be only there for 210 years. This was just to give you an idea how fine Kabbalah works. That one doesn't say Lord, God, or whatever, but that one derives and examines the Creator from his Torah. He hides in his own Torah. When you work on his Torah and you make yourself receptive and transparent, then it will come. Of course, we can only receive from him. Until someone becomes mature, then something can be revealed to him, and he might add something. Look at what Cain did regarding the strings. We have seen that Nun looks like the left part of Tzadi, but slightly curved. What did he do? What was the effect of his sin? We see the Yud in the Tzadi Sofit. The final letter Tzadi is Yud. Wisdom plus the final letter Nun that is slightly curved. The Tzadi Sofit has Yud and Nun Sofit. What did Cain do? He split up the Tzadi. The Tzadi is the righteous in man. He split up his connections or connectedness to the only creating strength. He split up the letter Tzadi into a separate Yud and a separate Nun, and thus arose Cain. Because of this, he did not have an end to all his sins. It keeps repeating itself while everything has to come to an end, a good end. Ketz is the liberation of the people of the land. Everything has to have Ketz, has to have an end. Yaakov said to Esav, I have everything enough. A person has to have a final goal, and not more and more without an end. Everything means that you have an end. I have closed system in myself. Then you're able to work on yourself. And what did Esav say? I have a lot. A lot means more and more and more. Nobody gets enough of more. That is Cain. He divided the Tzadi. Those things we can derive from the great Ari. This is how we learn the Torah in that way. All kinds of forms of letters. These were just examples. They were not meant as a lesson. There are 3 forms of learning. We can learn about the divine in the 5 or 10 Sfirot. We can learn from the names of the Creator. Everything that is written in the Torah are the names of the Creator. And we can learn from the forms of the letters. These are the 3 forms. And it has been mixed. Not first the Sfirot and then the names and then the letters. We use it interchangeably. Names can be represented in Sfirot, and conversely, forms of letters can be represented in the names, etc. Everything is interwoven.